Ruins of old abandoned farms are quite a common feature in certain parts of the countryside, particularly with poor quality land. Often they've been robbed of their stone, sometimes right down to the level of foundations. Old Ocken's farm stands close to the substantial ruins of Ocken's house. It sits in a wonderful position overlooking the old deer park. Ocken's Main stands quite close to the old house. As with all the other farms with the name Mains attached to them, their purpose was to produce food for the occupants of the castle or the mansion house which they stood close to. Backhill is a good example of a farm which has been abandoned and then all the stone has been robbed, probably used to build stone walls around the fields or to construct a new farmhouse somewhere nearby. Broadhurst Farm was probably abandoned because of relatively poor quality land. There's a clue in the place name. The Hurst part of the name means a barren ridge or hill. It's also typical of the shape of many Ayrshire farms, which is a sort of U shape. So the bottom of the U would be where the dwelling house was, and either side would be barns or byres. Lake Borland, near Dunlop, has a fascinating history. The name Borland is another name which means that it's associated, in this case, with a castle, and again to provide the food for the occupants of the castle. Later it's said to have been held by the monks of Kilwinnie Abbey, who grew medicinal herbs here. After this time it became the home of basically what they call bonnet lairds, that is aristocracy who weren't particularly rich and actually took a physical part in running the farm. Broome Now Farm has been reduced just to the foundations. It may be an example of a farm that was abandoned because its lands were taken for development, in this case, Bar Craig's Reservoir. Cairn Farm was established on poor quality land. It stands on a road that runs down to Black Loch. The road has moved to be behind it, so a lot of the infill from the road is put down onto the buildings. Originally, the road ran in front of the farm itself. The old Nethercairn farm stands close to Black Loch. It's a much more substantial farm than most of the others, but in a typical U shape. It has a few interesting features you can still be seen, such as an owl hole and perch. Owls were encouraged to control the vermin. It also has a rather nice marriage stone with the initials of the husband, the wife, and the date of their marriage. It lies in an exposed position, but it still has the extensive plantings around it acting as windbreaks. North Castle Walls Farm stands in a delightful and historic location. It's not far from Walls Castle, better known as Castle Walls, which was the headquarters, the capital of one of the Celtic tribes. It appears to have been abandoned not that long ago, but it is relatively poor quality land. It has quite high quality stonework that suggests it was associated with one of the nearby country estates. Though it seems to be extensions over its history, it seems to be a basic U shape. One of the byres has got a dovecot at the end, whilst the other has got an owl hole. One way of locating the site of an old farm, even when it's been totally robbed, there's no signs of building left, is the layout of the field boundaries and also the windbreaks around them. Even where the farmhouse has been abandoned, often the byres are kept as shelters for animals, though sometimes they become so dangerous they have to be demolished. Camp Castle Farm always seems to be relatively small, and again it lies on poor quality land. The name's interesting. The name castle doesn't necessarily associate with medieval castle. It could be Iron Age. Maybe the name camp adds to that association. The hills around that area of Craigie, some of them do have Iron Age castles atop them. Curly Moss, or New House, stands not far from the Bickham, just outside Beeth. The name is clearly associated with new builds, suggesting that they were built after the local farms were. I believe this house actually has now been taken over and rebuilt. The old Dar Rimston Farm stands not far from Drongham. It overlooks the site of an old loch. This was once an important mining area. Davis for the Mill lands near the Bickham, not far from Beeth. Probably started life as a flax mill, but later it was taken on by the famous vegetarian and early sustainability enthusiast Dougal Semple. He lived here for a number of years and encouraged others with similar ideas to live there as well. It's another example of a farm that's been abandoned due to development. In this case, there's a very large stone quarry very close to the boundary of the old farm.